like a gamble, I pay the price. Thought I could handle something undefined. Give me a reason to raise the stakes, 'cause I can't walk away.
Hey everybody, my name is Yaya McClain. I'm a former two-time world champion boxer. I worked hard all my life to get these titles. Now, I'm a real estate agent, and I work twice as hard to get you yours. So, if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in homes, and you're in the Georgia area, call me, Yaya McClain, with Keller Williams. A real estate agent you can trust. Yaya McClain with Keller Williams. I can be reached at 404-423-7153.
One of the biggest challenges men face in family court is defending themselves against false allegations. For nearly 10 years, the Isaac Law Firm has fought alongside men who stand to lose everything based upon someone's word alone. The Isaac Law Firm cares more about truth than political correctness. Call the Isaac Law Firm.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dad Talk. Today we are proudly brought to you by Upstream Growth Consultants, the Clock Law Firm, the Father's Rights Movement, the Isaac Law Firm, and the House Champ, Mr. Yaya McClain. But today we've got a very special episode. We've got Miss Marilyn York on the podcast. Marilyn, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you guys?
Doing all right. Marilyn, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found yourself becoming a father's rights attorney.
I'm a divorce attorney. I'm located in Reno, Nevada, the divorce capital of the world, actually, strangely. And I'm licensed in California as well as Nevada. I've been practicing for 22 years now. And I opened my law firm representing men specifically in divorce and family law matters in 2001, so 19 years ago. And I presently employ 10 female, paralegal, lawyer, business staff people. And all we do is represent men in divorce and family law matters.
That's awesome. And you're known for some commercials that you do. And I want to show one of these commercials really quick.
I'm divorce attorney Marilyn York. And while I represent men, the thing most men say to me is,
I hope I never need you.
So I thought I might help you guys do just that. This is all you need. Allow me to demonstrate.
I thought you were going to trim your beard.
Oh, you were going to trim your...
Have a good day at school.
Okay.
Love you.
Let's recap. Duct tape fixes almost anything, even relationships. But if it's too late, you know where to find me.
So that was an interesting commercial. Can you tell me, does duct tape really fix everything?
I think it does, but if it's too late, like I say in the commercial, we can't go back in time. It doesn't fix that. So yeah, it's pretty universal, but that commercial came about because, of course, I'm well known in Reno. We have about a 500,000 person population here. And every time I meet a new guy, they always say the same thing. I hope I never need you. I'm like, gee, what a concept. So I finally made fun of men because I'm well known for my snarky commercials that are anti-female, as the crowd likes to think. So this was the first one where I made fun of men, and I wasn't sure how it'd be received. I mean, remember the Gillette commercial? And men have been great, super good sports, with the exception of one guy who had a Southern accent, kind of like you guys, who left me a message saying, are you trying to say that men have to have their penises taped to stay married? I'm like, yeah, if you're going to use them somewhere other than your wife, yeah, tape it, boy. So he was the only angry man that's called about that commercial so far that I know of.
Oh, that is awesome. I knew somebody would say something about my Southern accent, but we definitely get it honest. Marilyn,
it's fun.
You did a TED Talk here recently. And after this TED Talk, I swear I woke up every day with about 10 different people tagging me in posts. Have you seen this yet? Have you seen this yet? And I got to watch it. And I'm going to tell you, that was a really, really good TED Talk. And I'd like to thank you for doing that. I'd like to show everybody a little clip, though, because there's something that you said inside this TED Talk that really caught my eye.
Even fathers underrate their own value. I know this data upsets a lot of mothers, me included. But advocating for fathers isn't about diminishing mothers. While children deserve both parents whenever possible, this crisis is specific to fathers. The occurrence of fatherlessness is epidemic. The effects are catastrophic, and the causes are male gender specific.
So you said something that really hit home with me. You said, just because you're advocating for fathers, that doesn't mean that we're diminishing mothers here. Could you speak a little bit about that?
So, of course, because my commercials tend to be a little snarky, people think I'm a woman hater. It's the common perception. And so I get a lot of grief that way. But when I was preparing my TEDx talk, I, of course, had a committee working with me through UNR, and the females in the audience were really good about saying, how do we get women to listen and not, feel like they shouldn't listen because you're female and you're advocating for men? And so, in that discussion, I said that advocating for fathers isn't about diminishing mothers. This isn't a competition. And it shouldn't be one. It's about helping kids have both parents whenever possible, or if that's not possible, the best possible parent for them, regardless of gender. Now, there's a lot of specific issues that come about when children are fatherlessness that are gender specific, really. And people ask me, what's the data about children that grow up without mothers? I don't know that as well. Obviously, that's not my area, but I know it's not as catastrophic because I did enough research to see that for some reason, and ask a psychologist why, the numbers are much more damning for children if they have no father than if they have no mother, as surprising as that might be to people.
Do you have any reason why that might be? I'm sorry, my microphone's feeding back a little bit.
I don't know. I know that, there's brilliant people out there like Dr. Warren Farrell, who writes books called A Boy Crisis and things of that nature. I mean, he'd be a better person to ask, but he has since I've met him via phone, and he's explained to me some of the science behind what fathers offer children in their development. One of the big things is delayed gratification. We all know, or most of us know, that that's a big indicator of future success. The way he explained it is that mothers and women help children have dreams and hopes, and we're positive, and fathers help them actually implement and see those hopes become realities by teaching discipline and delayed gratification. So frankly, the combination seems pretty crucial to me. Without someone to promote the dream, they don't have that goal, and without the discipline and the tolerance and ability for delayed gratification, they don't have the skills to implement that dream. So the ideal, of course, is both parents, whether they're in the same home or not. I mean, 50% of marriages end in divorce, 50% of children are born out of wedlock today. These are rounded up figures, but very close. So we're just gonna have to deal with the reality that kids don't have both parents in the same home. And that's okay. They can still co-parent from different homes and through shared custody.
Right. How big are false allegations at your office, Marilyn?
Substantially common on the front end of a custody battle or divorce, but do they get a ton of mileage? Not necessarily. Fortunately, family court here and in California, I can speak to that to some degree, are fairly used to seeing false allegations. And so sadly, sometimes real allegations get less traction than they should because the courts are so sensitive to the benefits a litigation can gain by having false allegations. And then, of course, some get way too much mileage. Repetitive allegations will get more mileage on the front end, and then they'll start becoming obviously just an attempt to, win a custody battle or defame another parent. But of course, we've had numerous horror stories in the office where somebody accuses a father of sexual molestation. That's the most horrible thing you can accuse someone of, frankly. And they'll do it in multiple jurisdictions. And so, I had a father that went through a full investigation in 4 different counties of California and Nevada. And each time the little girls got put in foster care until they could figure out they were false. And then finally she stopped making, progress with those. And eventually he ended up getting full custody. But, $200,000 later and 5 full trials in court, it shouldn't take that. And those girls will never be the same. We can't undo the effects of what they went through, unfortunately.
Right. And a lot of us realize, the outcome that the other parent, the custodial parent, receives for making those allegations. Like, as an attorney, in most cases, those allegations don't even need to be that strong, which is a very scary thing. But you had a very huge opportunity to go on and do that TED Talk. And my big question for you is, as a community and as a movement, we're always trying to look for ways to move that dial a little bit closer to equality so that, fathers can start seeing their sons and daughters more. Do you notice a difference of people contacting you and maybe that dial moving a little bit more to equality in the courts since you've done that TED Talk? Like, what kind of people have contacted you? What kind of feedback have you gotten, positive and negative?
So surprisingly, it's overwhelmingly positive. In fact, I haven't had any hate mail that the girls have forwarded me that's just strictly negative, which is shocking because let me tell you, my commercials, and I went on Tosh.0 3 years ago when Daniel Tosh's episode with me in it airs. I get international hate mail and fan mail. And it's like, equivalent, but I kind of ask for it when I'm being snarky. So I've been really excited about the positive response to this TED Talk. And particularly, I'm grateful to my committee because, like I said, there was a bunch of females on my committee who were really good at teaching me how to soften my message so they didn't stop listening. Because I had a few sharper ways of saying the same thing in the earlier drafts of the speech, and they would be really helpful to say, wait, I kind of stopped listening to you here because you said women never can answer these questions. I'm like, okay, that's not fair. That was too extreme. So then I softened it, and I think it had its intended effect. It seems that at least the people that are reaching out to me, which is I get 20 plus emails a day. We get 5 to 10 phone calls at the office a day, but on the actual TEDx feed, there's thousands of comments. They're predominantly male comments. Predominantly the feedbacks come from men, but it's almost entirely positive with a few like, I disagree, or this is what I think you could have done better, which is great. I mean, it was constructive, as though I get to do these all week, oh yeah, my next TEDx, but I'll put those in there. And it's having international impact. I had an email from a father in Japan today who's actually American. And sadly, he indicated that mediation has advised him that the best he can expect is 1 hour of visitation with his daughter a year. Do you guys hear me? A year in Japan. It literally makes me sick to my stomach. And he asked me if he could use my TEDx to help him in his court case. I'm like, I hope it helps. I sent him some actual helpful data, hopefully. But how horrible is that? For someone to think that this man's daughter only needs an hour a year? I mean, my God. So we have it a lot better in America than a lot of countries, it seems. And I'm learning that through these emails, which has been really enlightening and sad and great.
Right. Absolutely. And there's one thing I've got to ask you about. I love the way you opened up your TED Talk. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it yet. But I've got to ask you, Marilyn, is the story of the prize Easter egg with the dog turd true?
Not only is it true, but people like to ask me, like, your dad gave you the $5 afterwards, right? I'm like, no, my dad is 100%. He went to West Point. He's all kinds of military. He's very significantly determined in his child rearing technique. Hell no, I didn't get the $5. I'm just surprised it wasn't his turn, frankly. I mean, my dad is as tough as it comes, which I appreciate because I would be a much thinner skinned human today, but for his many life lessons. I had many stories in there from my dad that were pretty funny, frankly, but it's a short speech. So they took out a lot of them just to, it's a complex topic to try to cover in 13 minutes. So I had to remove the other crazy dad stories, but I have so many.
What would you say inside a family court is the biggest issue that men are facing right now?
In Nevada, as of 2017, we adopted a law that makes joint physical custody the presumption. So if you ask, the court's supposed to presumably give you joint unless it's not in that child's particular best interest. So it used to be that we spent years litigating to try to get to joint. Now it's the default. And in the absence of a court order, married people by Nevada law and unmarried people have joint physical and joint legal custody. That's a huge advantage that came about in the law in 2017. The disadvantages are still two. One, we're not seeing perfect implementation of these genderless laws by the court. I think there's really long-term bias that still exists. So we're not seeing, equal application. Not so much. Well, not so much in the physical custody as much, but I'm seeing it a lot more in the legal custody arena. So legal custody is what allows parents to make decisions regarding medical or religious or financial for their children, school, I see courts sometimes take away the decision-making power for men. They use it as a punitive sword, and to me, sometimes prematurely. I mean, I'm not saying my guys don't do stupid crap, they do. And so does the woman. You know, this is a sword they all play. Like, I just changed his school because I moved, or I'm not inviting you to the doctor's appointment because you're not going to listen. Stupid things like that. And the court overly penalizes my dads and takes away their decision-making power and just allows them information. And I don't think that should be done as lightly as I'm seeing it. And then support. Support has a long way to go before it's equal. There's a lot of discretion built in the statutes for alimony and child support. And there's never been a case where the woman is paid the same as the man. There's, 30% of cases where men have full custody. There's not even a child support order. I mean, that's a nationwide statistic, and that's not even legal. You have to enter a court order for child support if someone has custody, and courts just forget, and then they don't enforce the order. Women, 50% of women without custody don't pay any support, even though they're ordered to, but they'll get their nails done and their hair's fresh. Because I see them in court all day. I'm like, you're supposed to pay the minimum, ma'am. It's $100 a kid. And she's like, I don't have it. I'm like, your nails are fresh. That's $100. And your hair's fresh. That's $100. My nails look like this. Like, I'm a lawyer. So those are the places I see it the most. And then for me, as I touched on in my TED Talk, there are some areas in the paternity laws that are just horrific, that are, as far as I could tell in research, a nationwide issue. Paternity fraud, if you list the wrong man on a birth certificate, that is a nationwide issue. And after 90 days in Nevada, and I think California, after signing the voluntary declaration of paternity, which is what the hospital hands you when you have a new baby, they're like all doe-eyed and excited, like, oh my God, I have a new baby, sign. 90 days later, you can't do anything about it legally when that's not your kid. Worse yet are women that are having babies and not telling men that they're even pregnant. Now, okay, our fault, we're all loose and having one-night stands when we shouldn't be. Great, be mad at us. Give us all the religious speeches you want. But the reality is these women are pregnant, they got pregnant, and they didn't tell a dad. How is that not kidnapping? Like, it's unbelievable to me that is not, to me, that's not even political, that's not controversial, because women will say, well, he's abusive. Well, that's not your call. A court gets to decide that. It's due process. You don't take a child away from someone because you decide that, and you figured that out how from your one-night stand. I mean, that's the thing.
That due process violated in cases like that where there might be allegations. And because I know to most of us men, we feel like we're walking into a courtroom and we're guilty as soon as we walk in there. And even if the allegations are proven false, there's no repercussion for the person who made them. It's just a slap on the wrist, if anything, by the judge. Like, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like people are getting mileage out of false allegations anymore in Nevada like they used to. It used to be you could get a restraining order if he sent you a birthday card you didn't want. I'm not exaggerating. That's a real story, like 10 times. And now it's harder to get a restraining order, almost too hard, frankly. They kind of moved away from it. Part of it's because we didn't have enough people on the bench to hear them. I don't care why, though. Now it's finally a little more fair, and I'm not seeing like a big, long mileage out of it. But I don't see the hand slapping. I'm with you. Even when they've gotten significant mileage when they shouldn't have, I don't see punishment. I'll hear a warning every now and again, like the woman I talked about who accused my client in 5 jurisdictions, false allegations. She didn't get punished. She finally lost custody, but nothing. I mean, my guy paid $200,000 in attorney's fees for that, and these girls lost 5 years of their lives.
Right.
And in her case, she was not well mentally. I don't think she meant to be vindictive, sadly. I just think she's that unwell. She literally tilts at windmills and thinks demons are after her. She's just not healthy. But still, why does he have to sell his house? And she gets to not have the financial, punishment. She didn't even have an attorney most of the time. She just represented herself and went haywire.
Wow.
So there's a long way to go before we see equality. And I understand some of the financial. Women don't make as much money as men. I get that. I'm female. I understand. And so I don't know that they're completely off base in alimony. Should a man get as much alimony as a woman in the same set of circumstances? Well, the law says they should, but financially, he's able to get a job and make more money. That's what the data tells us. Financially, women don't recover post-divorce like men do financially. But I don't know if that's true for stay-at-home dads. I don't think we have data, to tell us that. So I don't think we can be that confident.
Yep. Marilyn, I want to take it back to something you was talking about a second ago, paternity fraud. That is a big issue. We've had Carnell Smith on this show many times. He's like one of the leading paternity fraud experts. And we've talked about this many times. I'm curious to know what you would think about this. Why do we not have paternity tests upon birth? There's so many problems that could fix. And I know it's going to get a lot of people up in arms about it, but if it was the standard and it was the norm, I think that would solve a lot of these issues.
I think it would take a lot of the question out of it too. I mean, when I have a guy come into my office, if they are not married, I insist that he get a paternity test. And there's no way to ask a woman for a paternity test without inadvertently calling her a whore. That's the bad news. You can't do it. Like hey babe, I'm sure you were faithful, but can I just make sure that's my baby? There's no good way. And the poor woman that's faithful, my God, she's totally appalled. I mean, it's hard not to be offended, but let me tell you about all the ones that feign offense. And then we have to do like 7 Jerry Springer paternity tests to find the dad. Those are my favorite. Like, oh, you were super offended, but we're on number 7. Like, I mean, so I wish that they would do it, because I agree with you. It would take the stigma out of it. It would just be kind of routine. They test babies for drugs. I mean, mandatorily after 1998 or something, all babies are tested for drugs now. They don't have to ask, hey, you look like you have meth sores and here that it's cystic acne. I mean, because that's offensive too. If we're like, hey, I think your baby's tweaking, and then the poor kid has nothing wrong with him. Same thing. I'm sure they're going to say it's cost. I don't think DNA tests are cheap, but I don't think drug tests are more, I'm sure maybe they're cheaper. But I think that the government protects itself. And the short answer is the government protects itself. So if they find out that daddy's not the daddy, it causes a divorce, and B, they don't know who the daddy is in some cases. And then the welfare system has to pick up the tab. They'd much rather have this guy pick up the tab and have him be present in this child's life and maybe be a decent dad than to find out that this child has no dad and welfare pick up the tab. So typically it's government protecting themselves is the answer to why people are motivated. And then it's religious, and then it's political. And that's why I say, at least if I tackle you didn't tell him he has a child, I have less controversy than we do with this one, where it's like, well, we're trying to keep families intact, and what if it's incest, blah, blah. We've heard it all. I still think they should do it. I'm all about kids actually they should get to know who their, actual parent is. I've had clients test teenagers because they ask me, like, she accused me of some weird stuff for the first time in this divorce. What if that's not my kid? And the kid's like 13, and I'm like, just mail in the toothbrush, at the Walgreens kit. And they mail it in, and they find out it's not their kid. And they're like, well, I'm not going to do anything about it because the dad I don't know who he is, and that's my child for 13 years. I'm not going to abandon this kid now. So they just don't tell anyone, and at least the dad made that choice. But what about the poor kid?
And I've heard of a lot of people that mess up. They get those little Walgreens kits or ones on eBay, and then they find out that they were not the father, and then they instantly try to use that. You can't do that, because then you're not going to get the actual one that you've got to use in court. Have you seen that before?
I haven't, but I'm sure it happens. My brother actually made a baby with a Craigslist casual encounter, because that's how we roll. Like, it's work study. So I got like a Facebook message from some not great person saying, is this your brother? Because if so, he's got a baby. You want to meet him? I'm like, holy crap, dude. The kid's like 5 months old and on welfare. So I was like, yeah, mind if I cheek swab you at the grand meeting? And it was he's wearing my dad's face. The baby's literally like my fat dad junior. I'm like, oh, it's ours. So, we had the personal experience, and we never used it in court. I just assumed it was accurate. He's wearing my dad's face. It's not a big mystery. So I'm sure that happens, though. And again, there's laws out there that give you only this tiny window to find out. And like I said, some of my clients, they just want to know for their own peace of mind, but they can't legally do crap. You're trapped. You're his dad or her dad for all intents and purposes. I had a big battle that was an interesting one, where the dad listed on the birth certificate was actually infertile. And the mom knew it, and the dad knew it. And my client was bio dad, and he lived in another state, and I had to bring him here to try to get the kid. The kid's like 5 months old. It was like a 1.5-year battle, and we lost in Nevada court. It's only because this judge ordered Idaho. This judge ordered Idaho to add my client to the birth certificate as an extra parent. And Idaho's like, we don't do gay marriage. You can't put two dads on a birth certificate. That's the only reason we were successful, is because in Idaho, that law helped us and we were able to put the correct dad on the birth certificate, and then that changed the presumption in Nevada and he ended up getting his kid. Otherwise, we would have lost. I'm like, what? How is that not fraud? He knew he was infertile, she knew it, and they put him on there anyway. Like, why do you get to just hide under the guise of fraud forever? It's so weird sometimes. They try too hard to be neutral. Paternity isn't everything. Biology, that's the court saying. I'm like, no, but it shouldn't be nothing. I mean, that's my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. Now, I know we talked about paternity, but what are some things that you think that we can do to improve upon this system? Are you an advocate for shared parenting?
I'm an advocate for shared parenting. I think generally speaking, it seems to be working well. What I'd like to see, and I think Nevada's a great place to do it, I'd like to see them capture some data. We are an e-filing system, so we online file everything. I wish our local college or somebody would do a little app that programs and captures data. Is this helping children? I bet it is, but unless someone captures the data, I can't say that with any confidence. Are kids graduating from high school more? Are they, going on to college more? Are there less instances of child abuse, poverty, all the indicators of success? Similarly, are the court systems cleaner with joint physical custody because now the power differential shifted and they have equal power? Are we seeing less contempt motions, or less motions for modification of custody or support? I think we are. I do less of them. But it'd be nice if someone actually tracked and could say, yes, shared parenting is good for kids. And I know psychologists are doing it, but what's the measure? We need to really look at the court filings and the high school graduation data and child abuse reports and poverty levels. All the indicators of success can be tracked through the census and every other database we use. We need to know instead of guessing.
What are some components of shared parenting that you've seen that might need a little bit of tweaking?
I think it would be really nice if the court allowed a trial period. It isn't the best for everyone. And when you have kids with special needs, for example, they can't always go back and forth well. Take an ADHD kid or a kid on the autism spectrum. Those children, by and large, need a much more regimented routine that's predictable for them to thrive. They may not do okay back and forth. And no insult to mom or dad. They may need a primary residential house in order to keep their schedule more predictable. And that's an example that's kind of more extreme, but not every kid can handle it. I have a 15-year-old daughter and she dictates her own schedule because I practice what I preach, and her father and I are great friends and we just get along. We actually track her on Life 360 to see whose house she's at because she just decides and we don't care. But she doesn't really spend the night at her dad's much during the week anymore. She just does on the weekends because she's a 15-year-old. Getting her hair done is more important than her parents. Like, it's stupid, but that's what makes her upset. If she can't get dressed in the morning and have her wardrobe available and her dumb hair wand, that's what makes her upset. It's stupid, but he doesn't push it, so she goes to dinner now instead of overnights on those days that she used to be there, but she still has the quality time with him. I didn't modify anything. I don't care. And so it works for her. That's an example, So I think if we had a trial period without stigma, without permanence, where maybe we gave it 6 months or a year, it needs to be long enough where we really get a feeling about whether it's working. And then maybe the court checks back in and it doesn't have like the legal boundaries. Because right now, once you have a permanent order, you have to typically show a change of circumstance or something to modify. It's expensive, it's hard, it's a legal roadblock. Perhaps if we could just do some trials and then tweak the schedule, even if you don't change it from joint, but you're like, oh, week on, week off's too much. Let's do shorter exchanges, or we have too many exchanges. Let's make it week on, week off. I think if we had some flexibility and sort of a mediation department that could handle it without litigation, it might be better for kids. I'm being idealistic as usual, but you asked.
And how long has shared parenting been passed in your state?
Well, in 2017, it became a presumption, but in about 2000, don't quote me on the date because I didn't look back at this one. I would say 12 or 13. If you made the request, the court had to consider it, or if the parties agreed to it, but it's gotten a little stronger as of 17. But we've been seeing that trend for more than 5 or 6 years now in Nevada. California was a little ahead of us.
You were practicing on both sides of that then. So before that there was presumption and then after, have you noticed that the false allegations have gone down drastically on the other side of that hump?
I would say yes, which is strange because frankly, they would be more motivated now to make the false allegations, you think, because without those, you're never going to get custody away from my guy. You know, my guys get joint custody kind of as a default. So unless he's a drug addict, child abuser, spousal abuser, completely like high or drunk or inept, you know, they're not going to get custody. So now they should have more motivation than ever to try to make that allegation. But I am seeing it less. And I think that goes to my point I made a moment ago, which is perhaps the equalized, you know, power is making people feel less embrazened to make allegations. I don't know.
Well, and I think like somebody who's been a client and I've been through the courts, I think what would go through my head in that instance would be, you know what, if we're walking there on an even playing field for custody and I go in there and I make a false allegation, there's a chance at that point this could turn around on me and I could lose custody if the judge looks at this and says this isn't, you know, this is incredible since we're both kind of starting off at 50-50. And maybe it's in their heads, they're thinking, you know, I don't want to take the chance of losing any custody and him getting full. Do you think that could be a part of it?
I hope. I mean, I think you're onto something. It could absolutely be a part of it. I hope with good legal counsel too, you say, can you prove it? Because I do when my clients are like, oh, I think he's an alcoholic. I'm like, okay, you're unqualified to make that judgment call. What evidence do you have to support that claim? And if they don't have enough evidence, I'm like, don't bother. If you make the claim and you can't support it, then you effectively cry wolf and you look like you're making a false allegation. Or if next time you can prove it because he actually gets a DUI with the kids in the car, sometimes you lose effectiveness when you bring that forth because the court's like, oh, she said this before, you know? And so you want to be a little careful. And I'm hoping that they're getting good legal advice in that regard, but it could be a number of things. I also think that prior to the current crisis, it was just the kind of world where we were all living beyond our means and everything was so expensive that most of the time we have both parents working. And I think women are learning that they need the male support and help. I've had 2 females referred to me recently because we take female by referral only. So it's about 5% of our practice. Both of them said, can you get my ex to take the kids half the time? I need his help and he's not helping me. They literally are trying to hire me to make him take his kid, you know, which is like a first. Because they need the help, you know, so they can work. So that's
now, Marilyn, have you ever had any clients that have came to you and maybe they're alienating the mother or they were actually, you know, abusers or something like that and tried to get you to go against that woman and you're like, I'm sorry, I just can't do this.
Of course. One of my favorite stories is I had a client in here and whether he intended to or not, I don't know, but he was absolutely alienating his children from a not great mom, but he was saying horrible stuff that he shouldn't have been saying and, you know, confiding in them and disparaging their mom all the time. And I was just lighting him up in my office, yelling, you're a horrible person. You're a horrible dad. What's wrong with you? And right in the middle of my speech, for some reason, I realized, oh my God, I forgot to get my kid from school. It's 5 at night. It's 5 o'clock and I'm screaming at this guy. School got out at 3. So for 2 hours, my then like 7-year-old child was unaccounted for. And he just started at a new school. And so I just run out of the building in the middle of my "you're a bad parent" speech and call the school. And the principal answers the phone and says, hold on, let me see if he's here. And then he puts me on hold for 5 minutes and comes back and goes, I heard some kid downstairs saying men have rights too. I think he's here. I was like, oh, funny. So, I mean, it was just like ridiculous that I'm giving this, you know, holier than thou speech and then I forget my kid at school for 2 hours. But yes, I have it happen. When we find out our clients are in fact the monsters they were accused of being, we fire them, period. I don't advocate for fathers to help monsters at all. We don't condone, you know, physical abuse to women or children. We don't advocate men not paying support and starving women out. We don't put up with it. It's not why we do what we do. And we predominantly have really good dad clients. You know, it's occasionally we'll have an exception and we'll can them.
Have you noticed a pattern with opposing attorneys that you go into the courtroom with? Like you have like one attorney, you know, if you go in there, oh, there's going to be this allegation and there's going to be this allegation because this is what they've told their clients to say. And you just know at that point it's not true because of the attorney.
Well, and you hope it's not true because yes, one attorney comes to mind and there's more than one, but one comes to mind. She's the attorney that makes an allegation that starts kind of low grade and then she escalates it throughout the litigation. If she doesn't get mileage the first time, she just escalates it and she doesn't do it well. I can track her in pleadings. I'm like, okay, this is the first letter you sent me and you never said anything. This is the second thing you did, you filed in court and now he's an alcoholic. This is the third thing and now he's physically abusive to his wife. Now he's physically abusive to his daughter. Now he's a sexual abuser. Now he's a pervert. Like it's every time, that's exactly the pattern. And so God forbid she get a client who's being honest. They don't look honest because that's her pattern. So she harms her case and it isn't effective because I just pointed out it's ridiculous. I mean, I get that people don't always come forward right away when they've been abused. I do get that. And I hope it's not those cases. And in the few I'm thinking of, it's been proven to be untrue as best you can prove that. So yes, and those people should be disbarred. I mean, we are required to advocate in the best interests of the children. That's the statute that we are required to put forth. It's not like criminal court where everyone deserves their day in court and everyone deserves an attorney and an advocate. That's not the case in family court. We're supposed to advocate what's in the best interest of the children and consistent with our clients' wishes. If they're not consistent, we shouldn't advocate a position that's not good for kids. So I believe, and so the courts have confirmed when I've asked them this question. Not every attorney agrees with me.
What's it been like speaking out for fathers? You know, a lot of times, I started this podcast about 8 months ago, and I have heard so many times when talking out about rights and parental alienation, shared parenting, I need to take dad out of the name. And it's like, I'm not taking dad out of the name. That's the problem. They've taken dad out. We're trying to put dad back in. But a lot of times, just because we're speaking about dad, I know we touched a little bit on this earlier, but I really want to hit it home. Just because we're speaking about dad, we're not trying to take voices away from others. I'm a father. I got 4 daughters. Last thing I ever want to do is take their voice away.
Of course.
But some of the challenges that we are facing inside of family court are just horrendous. I mean, horrendous. Can you speak to some specific challenges that you see that fathers are going through that you're not seeing so much on the other side?
So obviously the world is of the belief that men have an advantage. A white man has an advantage. And that's true and untrue. It's true in some ways, financial. It's untrue in that men are predominantly the ones that commit suicide and that have heart attacks and die younger and go to family court and are disadvantaged. There's a ton of disadvantages for men and boys. The problem is when you are a man and you say it, it comes across more aggressive. It's like a victim, look at poor me, and then people get turned off. I have an advantage saying it as a woman. People think there's an automatic credibility when I say it because they're like, oh, wow, she sees it. And I have no credibility depending on who's listening because they're like, you're not a man, you don't know. You know, so it hurts me and it helps me. But I see some of the disadvantages in family court, besides what we've already spoken to as far as the laws, is the way men are wired. In my experience and the females that work for me, men are not wired for emotional warfare. And that's what family court is. It's an emotional war zone. Women are wired for that. Women have a capacity for emotional trauma and war that is 100 times as big as a man's. And so when men come into family court, they have a couple reactions. Ostrich, head in the sand, you know, deer in the headlights, suicide, depression, aggression, you know, fight or flight. They'll overreact and be aggressive because they're scared. And so none of these reactions serve them well in family court, and they feel unable to engage in the actual necessary verbal, emotional, you know, paperwork war that they need to prove their ability as a parent. So to us, it's an advantage that they hire females to represent them in a place where we are wired. And we're just far enough removed where it's not as personally emotional for us. So I think it's really cool to have a man represented by a woman. I also think that women receive an advantage by being represented by men. I think it similarly works in their favor. I think the cross-gender works for authority. When we say to our clients, knock that crap off, they will. If a man says it to them and we say it harsher than that, they'll probably get punched. You know, I mean, men react well to that sort of authority. They don't feel like I'm challenging them as like a gender challenge. Whereas when I have female clients, I'm like, don't do that. You're being an idiot as a mom. They're like, oh, you think you're a better mom than me? I'm like, no, nobody wants my kids. Like, no, I'm just, you want custody? You know, so I think that gives us an advantage, and it also kind of makes up for some of the places where men are disadvantaged in the emotional arena, at least. It's been our experience, and a positive one.
Right. Well, Marilyn, so we know that you had the TED Talk, and about how many months ago was that, or how?
Not February 29th is when I did the actual talk. It just was aired last Friday. So today is like 8 days later, and it should reach 1 million views tonight.
Okay, so it's definitely blowing up, and I just wanted to know, what plans do you have like going forward? Because, you know, us as a movement, a lot of us fathers and even mothers out there who are struggling due to this horrible system. Have you kind of thought ahead of what comes next for you? Because you've got a lot of traction right now, and it would seem like right now is a good time to strike while the iron's hot.
I hadn't yet considered that when I did the talk. It was just my first kind of curated opportunity to capture what I've done as my life's work. I mean, half my life I've spent doing this, and it's been the most privileged, rewarding experience. I love what I do every day. It's been hugely gratifying, but I haven't gone on a bigger scale and done what I wanted to do for the legislature. And so I talked to some people about sponsoring a bill in Nevada to try to change the laws and make it a felony for a woman to have a baby and not notify the prospective father and include him on the birth certificate. That's my first thing I want to tackle. I think the traction of this TEDx speech is giving me some credibility. It's giving me an opportunity to meet people like Dr. Warren Farrell, who is trying to get a committee for boys and men in the White House. I joined that committee, which I was honored. He asked me to, be a part of it. So now I joined that committee. And so I now am getting behind me some of the experts that have been pioneering this field for a long time. And I have a connection with the legislature in Nevada. And so I'm going to use that with this traction to try the next legislative session to actually go lobby, which I've never taken the time to do, frankly, because I work a lot. And I run a charity in town for homeless girls. That takes the extra 5 seconds of my time. But this is important, and I don't want to lose this opportunity. And so I'm getting a lot of calls, silly ones and then good ones, as a result of the traction that this is getting. Right. I love how much positive feedback it's receiving, and I love that the world seems ready to hear it. I think this is great for your movement. I love the groups I'm meeting, like you guys, that are normal, well-reasoned, good people, because I have had experiences where I've had men's rights groups locally try to connect to me, and they're extreme, like not mentally well in some instances. We had a nationally known sniper shooting here 10 or so years ago, where a disgruntled man going through a divorce shot Judge Chuck Weller through the window of the courthouse, sniper style, and tried to kill him. And he hit him, but he didn't kill him. And that guy fled. It was on FBI's Most Wanted. Unfortunately, a lot of the fathers' rights groups attached to that locally and acted like that was totally warranted. And it's not. It's horrific. And so it's great to see really nice, smart, solid, well-intentioned, reasonable fathers' rights groups out there that really care for the right reasons, have the data, have the intention, and those are the ones that need traction, not the few fringy extreme groups on the women's side too, because the feminist movement has just as many extremes that are very unpleasant. But, it's been nice to be able to be sort of like a reasonable female voice that says, this is why I'm doing it. It's not, I'm not a hate group. I'm not a hate speech giver. I care about kids. And so do you. I care about my own kids. I care about your kids. I care about the future kids, the 17 million, the 30 million, depending on which data, that are growing up without fathers. I mean, we're seeing all the numbers in schools, and children are failing to thrive. I run this homeless girls home. We have 15 girls in it. They are not meeting their markers for success, but it is not just the homeless girls that aren't meeting these markers for success. Rich kids aren't meeting their markers for success. It's just that rich parents are insulating us from knowing that. They're taking care of their kids. But boys and girls are not meeting their markers, and it's parenting. It's parenting where that matters. So we have to address it, or it's going to be a bigger crisis than the current world coming to an end.
Marilyn, so I heard you say that you would like to talk to the legislature and tell them about some of these things and what you would like them to change. Well, tomorrow, we're going to be meeting with about 25 different candidates, and a lot of them are already in office, from the Senate, Congress, House of Representatives. We got even a few that are running for governor, and they're coming to the show to talk about shared parenting and parental alienation and fatherless homes. If you could get their audience, what would be the topics that you would hit when speaking to them?
I mean, I want to find out if they even know the data. The first question is, what knowledge base do they come from? Do they understand the disadvantage to children growing up without fathers? I guarantee they don't. I can tell you dads don't know. That's the first thing I have to do when a dad hires me, is educate him about the importance of him being in his own child's life. I said it in my talk, and it comes from personal experience. I've represented 5,000 men in my practice, and they don't know how important they are. So before the legislature or the judges or the candidates can be expected to enforce and or change the laws in a positive way, they need to understand why it matters. Like, do you know that your kids are 90% more likely to run away, or 200% more likely to commit suicide if you're not in their life? And sometimes dads get killed or die. It's not all dads not making the effort. It's not all bad women pushing dads out. They die, you know? I mean, in that case, the kid had no choice. The mom had no choice. The dad had no choice. He's still destined for this horrible fate if we can't do more, and we need to. And the best thing we can do is shared parenting. Because I can tell you the statistics on all of the horrible things that happen to kids without dads, they are not skewed by every other weekend dads. They need a daily parent, or at least a joint parent, to even touch those statistics. They need to understand that. So it's really an education thing first. And then I feel like people do the right thing, hopefully. Maybe I'm idealistic again. People want to do the right thing if they're motivated. So that's our first thing, is educating them, you know, and I think you're going to have to do some of that. I just think, especially if they're sheltered, if they beat the odds, because I hear that a lot. I'm sure you guys do too. Oh, I grew up without a dad. Look how I turned out. Well, lucky you. Lucky you.
Hear it all the time.
Or women yell at me. You saying my kids are screwed? Yeah, I am. That's the most likely outcome. I hope I'm wrong. I hope my kids aren't screwed, but that's the most likely outcome. We have to work and spend our life trying to overcome these, you know, statistical likelihoods. We all have statistics against us. We all try to overcome them, but ignoring them, pretending they're not there, pretending they aren't real threats, doesn't make it more likely to overcome them. And they can yell at me all day. I didn't write the data. It's real. You know, you just have to accept that and work to overcome it, of course. God bless the woman that's the exception. God bless the mom that raises perfect children without a dad. I hope she can call me with some tips. Like, I mean,
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about this as well. You mentioned there was a list of questions that father is going to have to hear when he goes and sits down inside a family court that he might not know. But if we flip it around and we ask a different set of questions to a mother, that she might not know exactly either. And do you believe that's just, we play different roles? There's different things that we do, even though I think a single parent, they can do it on their own. I know I was a single parent, but
sure,
mom and dad have a special place in their children's heart, and they interact with them a little bit different. Could you speak a little bit about that?
So what I learned from Dr. William Farrell is that wrestling, roughhousing with men and children teaches empathy, which is counterintuitive. Because if you watch it, and you guys don't watch it, you do it, it looks horribly like violent to women sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, you just body slammed my kid like a freaking WWE wrestler, and he's 2. But this play is shown in the data to teach empathy to children. And empathy is much higher when children have dads in their lives, which is, again, counterintuitive. We think we're these soft, amazing nurturers and that kids learn it from us. They don't. They learn it from interacting with their dads. And so that's one of the questions. So I learned in my practice, because I get my dads ready for court, you know, I think like a woman. That's one of the advantages to being female, representing men. I'm like, hey, what's the name of your kid's doctor or dentist or school teacher or even their best friend? I mean, these guys stare at me blank. That's my favorite joke when a guy comes and hires me and I'm like, what's your date of marriage? Half the time they can't tell me. And I'm like, do you think this is why she left you, jackass? Like, you guys have been married 25 years and you don't know your anniversary yet? And they laugh. And so, but it's true. Men are not good at that sort of weird, detailed knowledge about their teacher's name or their parent name, with a couple exceptions. Male nurses, amazing. Oh my God, those guys are like, they make me look like an idiot. But generally speaking, this is an area of weakness for men. The strengths being the play questions. What kind of superhero does your kid want to be? What are your kids' true fears? Like, what actually makes them feel defeated? Dads can answer that, and moms are like, I don't play superhero with my stupid kid. I'll tell you how he can't brush his teeth, you know? And so there's holes in both sides, and you can, if you know them, and that's the advantage to representing men predominantly, is we start seeing patterns. We see patterns in bias with the courts. We see patterns in dad's knowledge base, and so we help them. I help them learn this stuff, and it makes them a better parent. They also look better in court. Similarly, mothers could learn something. I just got in a fight with my husband this week because he told me I was a checked out mom because he plays with our 3-year-old all evening long, you know, all the fun games, hockey in the garage and body slamming and dart shooting. I wasn't participating because I'm flipping tired and I have 2 teenagers, but I brush the teeth every night. I clip the nails. I read all the stories. I do the bath and I feed him. And so I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally living my actual job right now, you know? And he had a valid point. I was kind of jealous. I'm like, hey, jackass, you go clip his nails. He hates it. And I'll shoot him with a dart gun. He's pissing me off right now. I want to shoot him with a dart gun. I'll probably miss, but women have better aims than men. So I'm told. I'm going to test that out tonight. But it came out with a good result. We were both mad, but you know, it was a nice reminder that I need to be playful too, and that he needs to do some of the day-to-day not so fun stuff so that we can balance each other better. And, you know, the kid can have that interaction with both.
And Marilyn, this is a question we've asked Melissa Isaac before. She's another attorney who comes on our podcast and does an amazing job and is very solid like yourself. You know, when you have a client and you know that the opposition has their client texting or maybe emailing and baiting your client into getting angry, what advice do you give them? Because that's the trap we see set and sprung a lot of times in this community. You know, the passive aggressive text message, and then it's your client's turn to respond. What is your advice for people out there when they get those passive aggressive text messages or emails?
So a couple steps. A, men and women are not equal. Duh. So when men are aggressive, it is perceived much worse than if a woman is. And I have to make them understand this in court. I'm like, do not look at her. Do not make a face when she talks. Look at the judge, look at the ground. I will grab your leg with my fingernails the first time you violate these rules, and I will move up towards your man junk, because you don't get a lot of chances. It comes across as a physical threat when you're just being a normal human and having a reaction. 2, do not make evidence in court against yourself. Like, this is your opportunity to take the high road. Take as long as you want. Do not answer immediately. It's not an emergency. Take a moment to step back, take some deep breaths, write 22 texts in your note page that are horrible and then erase them. Do not send it. 3, there are programs on the internet designed to help everyone, not men. Women do it too, because I've had plenty of crazy women in voicemail, email, video. It's called ourfamilywizard.com. It's one of the predominant programs we use. Talking Parents is another one. Our Family Wizard has a tone meter. You can literally turn the tone meter on and it'll be like, red flag, you're being aggressive, because you guys don't always know. You think you're just being factual and you're emotional, and the women don't know. So turn the tone meter on and obey it. 3, 4, send it to me or our staff. Let us preview it, show it to your mom, show it to your reasonable neighbor. 5, like, again, once in a while, we're all human. I mean, I'm not perfect and I don't walk around like holier than thou. So I'm like, dude, if you have something really inappropriate to say it verbally. Just do it once and get it out of your system, but do not do it in writing. Like, just get, you know what I mean? And then I teach them the joy of the opposite side, because I had an ex-husband who was super aggressive and abusive to me. And he would write me these horrible texts that I can't even say because they have every FCC violative word on planet Earth in them. And my response was like this game. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry you feel that way about me. Would you like to talk to the kids? And he'd be like, I'd effing call when I effing can. And I'd be like, that'd be awesome. Like, I look like such an idiot. Like, I'm on Prozac times 20. I can't be. But I'm like, it just amused me to no end to not engage. And so I try to teach them, if you want a sport that's fun, change up your behavior and we'll throw them for a loop. You've been engaging in this pattern your whole marriage. Spice it up. Go the opposite route, and watch them freak out. Bait them back. You know what pushes their buttons. Spend some energy doing that and make some nice evidence for me. I mean, and then last resort, I take their phones. I'm such a mommy. I'm like, oh, guess what? I warned you 3 times to stop sending this crap in text, and you can't figure it out. Give me your phone. You can have it on Monday. You get no phone for the weekend, and maybe the absence of it will teach you to behave yourself. Like, I'm your mom, and you're in the naughty chair. Like, sometimes I have to go naughty chair. And then that'll fix it. They're like, oh my God, like no phone, I can't get on Tinder. Holy crap. Like, so, but women are not better. I see horrific videos.
Right.
And I can make women mad in court, depending, just to get their true colors to come out while they're on the stand. I mean, that's what you want. You want the judge to see their true colors. So, but yeah, it's an issue, and you don't want to make evidence because then the court artificially perceives you unfairly. That's not your best. But admit it. That's the other advice I give. Don't act like a freaking hero in court. If somebody catches you and you said something horrible, or you made some dumb comment in the memo column of your child support check, the other favorite, like for sex, I'm like, oh, good one, buddy. Just admit it. Just say, I'm sorry, Your Honor. It was super immature. I'll stop doing it. I just kind of reached my limit, and this was the only way I had as an outlet. It wasn't appropriate. I understand. Just own it. You don't have to be perfect, but if you defend your behavior when you're acting poorly, then you're in trouble. If you act like it's justified, like, well, she deserves it. She is a bitch. You're like, oh, that great. Don't do that. Don't do that.
You're like, why'd you hire me?
Yeah, I always say, I'm not Kevorkian. I don't assist suicide. If you want to kill yourself, do it without me. You don't need to pay me this much money for this.
Marilyn, I got one last question for you.
Yes.
For any of our fathers out there. Okay, for any of the fathers out there that are finding themselves going through a divorce or a custody battle, or they're going through parental alienation, what steps would you tell them to take?
Be prepared to fight longer term than you're wired for. Because what I didn't say last time is the attention span of a man for emotional warfare is like 1 to 3 months. And then you guys kind of get just worn out and you just want it done at any cost. So you'll easily fall for the trick that women pull every time. Sometimes they sleep with you while they're doing this, which is just sign here and we'll work it out ourselves. And then they totally use that to their advantage and you get screwed and you signed away everything. Don't give in. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Just baby steps. It's a long game of chess. Hire a good advocate if you can afford one, or consult with one if you can't. It isn't hire or no hire. There's a lot of in between where you can pay a consult fee and get advice along the way. Ask smart people in your life to help you. Stay the track and fight the good fight. And it's never about you. It's always about your kids. What's best for your kids? Put it on a sticky note, write it on your wall, put a picture of your kids on the wall with a reminder. And remember, that's the long-term goal. This is a lifetime that you're fighting for. So you can't expect to do it in a month and have the right result. Like you might have to fight for a year for their entire lives. And so it's worth it. Your kids need you. Don't give up.
Right. Now, Marilyn, my question, and I'd feel wrong if I didn't ask this, and I apologize for asking it, but unfortunately the circumstances we're in with coronavirus, there's going to be a lot of people who watch this who are being impacted negatively from the stimulus package that was passed because they have back child support and they've had these court orders with just overwhelming, ridiculous child support put on them. And they're working 40 hours a week. They might have 2 jobs. They're barely keeping a roof over their heads. And then, of course, the coronavirus comes along, shuts the economy down. They might, not be able to work or, depend on tips for wages, something like that to survive. And that stimulus passes. And now they find out they're not even going to get all of, or if any, their stimulus check. The reason why I want to ask you this is because there's a lot of people who don't realize what's going on with that in, our country today. Could you talk about that a little bit, maybe in relation to your clients, like who might be impoverished due to child support and the weight of child support from the courts not being able to get those checks? What are your thoughts on that?
It's not much different than generally child support being overreaching and burdensome. The big issue we have in Nevada, and frankly, California didn't handle it perfectly yet that I know of, is that women and men are having children out of wedlock. They have multiple children with multiple fathers or multiple mothers, and the child support scheme doesn't handle that well. They act like everybody has the same 2 parents, and so the percentage goes up with each kid. But then in Nevada, for example, you were paying 18% of your gross income for 1 kid. Well, if you have 3 baby mamas, you're paying 18% 3 times. And after taxes, you're living on $2. And the discretion allowed in the statute was never used by the courts. There's a catch-all. Any other reason the court thinks they wanted to, modify it, they don't use it. And so similarly here, There is no recourse that I know of currently. Currently, it's written that, the financial recourse that you get can be taken for child support if you owe back support, similar to tax refunds. There's no discretion given. They're just going to take it. So if you're in the system, meaning like the district attorney is collecting your support, they're just going to take the check. And I doubt you can do a lot about it. Now, where you can do something about it is to modify your support. And you need to do that immediately. You need to file a motion with the court and say, I need a modification, and I need it fast, in part because this money that was supposed to come to me to help me was taken. And fine, she got it. The kids hopefully receive it, but now I need my support lowered more and faster so that I can recover myself, because it's not to any child's best interest to have a one-parent homeless. Then they can't visit. How are you supposed to visit your kid if you can't feed them when you have them and you have no safe home to bring them to? So it is major, but the best recourse that I know of would be to go to the court and ask for the modification, because I don't think you have any other choices.
Absolutely. Marilyn, thank you so much for coming to the show today and for everything that you've done. It's not often that our issues get to be put on a grand stage, to have a bigger voice. And you did that really well. And you came here tonight and answered all the questions. And I tell you, the comments are flooded with people say they want to see you back. So I would like to reach out.
It'd be my pleasure.
Yes, ma'am. A little bit later on. If anybody wanted to find you or they needed some of your services, where can they find you?
I have a website, MarilynYork.com. And then I also have a public figure Facebook page. It's just Marilyn York. So those are the two easiest places. I have a column in the local newspaper here, the Reno Gazette Journal. I do an Ask Marilyn every 2 weeks where I answer legal questions too. So you can find that on rgj.com. Those are the easiest places.
Eric, we have one question from Glenn Baker in the comments. He said, please ask her why Nevada won't adopt the formula the Supreme Court used in Miller versus Miller. Does that mean anything to you, Marilyn?
I think he's asking a child support question. We actually just had a new child support scheme come out in February of this year that changed the child support. And I'm seeing it saving my guys substantial money at the mid-class, like mid-income level, and certainly lower income. The rich are getting slammed, but they can afford it. So I've been pleased with watching, how it's helped. For example, I have a guy that has 3 daughters. His child support was about $1,800 a month. It went to $800. Like, it saved him $1,000 a month. And he's just a middle class working guy. Now, I feel bad for mom because she's used to receiving that support and was probably spending it on the 3 kids. It's not that she wasn't. And that's a big jump down. But I don't know of the Miller v. Miller formula offhand. I'm not familiar with that. So I can't answer that offhand. I should, but I'm like, oh. So I'm sorry, but I urge him to take a look at the current statute that's out there that just came out in February. I just did an RGJ article kind of explaining it, but he can reach out to my office if he wants a copy. I'll send it to him.
Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marilyn, thank you again. And everybody, thank you for tuning in. And hopefully we'll see you sometime again soon.
It'd be my pleasure. Thank you for having me on today. Best of luck to all you dads.
Yeah. Everybody tune in tomorrow as we talk to legislation about shared parenting and parental alienation. We need your help. See you guys.